The grand White House ballroom glittered beneath crystal chandeliers, overflowing with senators, billionaire investors, media moguls, and some of the most powerful people in America. Expensive laughter echoed through the room while cameras flashed from every direction. Yet among all that power, one woman stood completely alone. Evelyn Carter could feel the weight of countless eyes pressing against her. Her simple navy dress looked painfully ordinary beside the designer gowns surrounding her. Whispers drifted through the crowd like invisible blades. Fear tightened around her chest. Her heart pounding, she tried to focus on the reason she had worked so hard to earn her place there. She refused to let insecurity control her. Then Nathan Blackwood arrived. The celebrated CEO carried himself with the confidence of a man who believed the world belonged to him. One glance at Evelyn's name tag was enough to make an amused smile appear on his face. Moments later, quiet laughter spread among several guests. The humiliation was subtle but deliberate. People like her were not supposed to stand beside America's elite. Evelyn fought the sting in her eyes. She was not a victim. Then everything changed. The massive ballroom doors opened. An uneasy silence swept across the room. Senators straightened. Billionaires stepped aside. Conversations died instantly. A dangerous presence entered, wrapped in quiet power and absolute control. Few dared meet his gaze. Fewer still dared whisper his name. He was the hidden king of an empire built in shadows. Then, before the stunned crowd, the president walked directly toward him and took his hand. Nathan's confidence vanished. But the most shocking part was not the president's gesture. It was the fact that the feared mafia boss ignored everyone in the room and looked only at Evelyn Carter. And for the first time that night, Evelyn felt that something far more dangerous than humiliation had just entered her life. I've written heading 1 in your required cinematic style, with smooth paragraph flow, suspense, emotional depth, no repeated scenes, no physical violence, and kept it within the 700 to 750 word target. Evelyn Carter had spent most of her life walking into rooms where she felt she did not belong. She grew up in a small town in Ohio where opportunities were rare and dreams often ended before they truly began. While other teenagers spent their weekends at football games and parties, Evelyn spent hers working part-time jobs, applying for scholarships, and searching for a way beyond the limits of the life she had been born into. Her mother worked double shifts as a nurse, and every dollar in their household carried a purpose. Nothing came easily. Every achievement demanded sacrifice. Years later, those sacrifices had brought her to Washington. At 26, Evelyn worked as a junior policy analyst for a respected federal agency. The position was not glamorous, and most people in the Capitol barely noticed employees at her level. Yet she loved the work. She believed ideas could improve lives. She believed dedication still mattered. That belief had carried her through countless sleepless nights, impossible deadlines, and years of proving herself in environments dominated by people with more money, more influence, and more connections. Tonight should have felt like a reward. Instead, standing inside the White House ballroom, she felt smaller than ever. The humiliation Nathan Blackwood had casually delivered still echoed through her mind. The CEO had mastered the art of making someone feel insignificant without raising his voice. His words had been carefully crafted to sound harmless to outsiders while cutting deeply enough to leave a mark. Around her, conversations resumed as if nothing had happened. Billionaires exchanged business cards. Politicians laughed over expensive wine. Media executives floated between groups like they owned the room. The atmosphere radiated power and control. Evelyn stood near one of the tall windows overlooking the city lights. For a moment, fear threatened to creep into her thoughts again. She could still hear the quiet whisper of judgment moving through the crowd. Some guests glanced her way before quickly looking elsewhere. Others seemed to dismiss her entirely. Her heart pounding, she considered leaving. No one would blame her. No one would even notice. The thought lingered for only a few seconds before she straightened her shoulders. Leaving would make Nathan right. Leaving would mean every difficult year, every scholarship application, every sacrifice her mother had made, every impossible obstacle she had overcome meant nothing. Evelyn took a slow breath and reminded herself why she had come. She was there because she had earned her invitation. She belonged exactly where she stood. She was not a victim. The realization settled something deep inside her. For the first time that evening, she stopped looking at the people around her and started observing them. She noticed how desperately many of them chased attention. She noticed how often conversations revolved around status rather than substance. Beneath the polished smiles and tailored suits, insecurity seemed to exist everywhere. Oddly enough, that realization made her feel safer. Not completely safe, but safer than before. Meanwhile, across the ballroom, Nathan Blackwood continued entertaining a circle of influential guests. Every few minutes his gaze drifted back toward Evelyn. There was satisfaction in his expression, as though he expected her to disappear eventually. Men like Nathan built their confidence on controlling how others felt about themselves. What he did not realize was that Evelyn had spent her entire life learning how to survive without anyone's approval. As the evening continued, another pair of eyes remained fixed on her. Unlike Nathan's, these eyes carried no amusement, no judgment, only interest. From a private section near the center of the ballroom, the mysterious billionaire watched quietly. The crowd naturally created distance around him. Even among America's elite, few people seemed comfortable standing too close. Power surrounded him without effort. People respected him before he spoke. Some feared him before they knew why. Yet his attention never left Evelyn. He observed the way she refused to retreat after being humiliated. He noticed the determination hidden beneath her calm exterior. Most importantly, he recognized something rare in Washington: authenticity. The room continued moving around them like a carefully choreographed performance, but neither Evelyn nor the billionaire seemed fully part of it. One was fighting to prove she belonged. The other already owned every room he entered. And then, after several minutes of silent observation, the mysterious man finally set down his glass. The crowd instinctively shifted aside. Evelyn looked up. For the first time that night, the powerful stranger began walking directly toward her. "I've expanded heading 2 to fit your requested 700 to 750 word range while maintaining continuity, suspense, protection, romance dynamics, and smooth cinematic storytelling." Evelyn watched as the mysterious man crossed the ballroom. The reaction he created was impossible to ignore. Senators who moments earlier had been commanding conversations suddenly stepped aside. Billionaires paused mid-sentence. Even media executives, who normally chased attention wherever it existed, became strangely cautious. It was as if an invisible wave of power had swept through the room, forcing everyone to acknowledge a presence greater than their own. When he finally stopped in front of her, Evelyn felt her breath catch. Up close he was even more intimidating. Not because he appeared dangerous, because he appeared completely in control. The confidence surrounding him was effortless. He did not seek attention. He did not need approval. The room adjusted itself around him naturally. Damien Moretti had built that reputation over many years. To the public, he was one of the world's most successful billionaires. His shipping corporations controlled international trade routes stretching across Europe, Asia, and North America. Business magazines celebrated him as a visionary entrepreneur. Financial analysts studied his strategies. Governments sought partnerships with his companies. That was the public version. The truth existed far beyond newspaper headlines. Behind the legal businesses stood a hidden empire that few people ever saw. An organization built through generations of influence, loyalty, and secrets. It operated quietly beneath the surface of politics, finance, and global commerce. Most people only heard whispers about it. Those who understood its true reach rarely spoke openly. That was why the president himself had greeted Damien with unusual respect. It was not friendship. It was recognition. Men like Damien shaped outcomes long before headlines appeared. And tonight, despite hundreds of influential people filling the ballroom, his attention remained fixed on one woman: Evelyn Carter. "I believe tonight has been difficult for you." His voice was calm and steady. There was no pity in it, only observation. Evelyn immediately knew he had witnessed Nathan Blackwood's public humiliation earlier. A faint smile appeared on her lips. "Difficult isn't the worst thing I've survived." The answer seemed to surprise him. Most people would have complained. Others would have tried to gain sympathy. Evelyn did neither. Damien found himself studying her more carefully. She carried herself differently than most people in Washington. There was strength beneath her uncertainty, determination beneath her nervousness. Even after being embarrassed in front of some of the most powerful people in America, she remained standing. She was not a victim. And for reasons he could not explain, that fact interested him. Their conversation gradually deepened. They spoke about public policy, education, and economic opportunity. Evelyn explained her work as a junior policy analyst and her desire to create meaningful change. Damien listened closely. He rarely encountered people whose ambitions were driven by purpose rather than profit. The more she spoke, the more unusual she seemed. Across the ballroom, Nathan Blackwood noticed everything. At first, he assumed Damien would exchange a few polite words and move on. Instead, minutes passed. Then more minutes. The two continued talking. Nathan felt an uncomfortable sensation growing inside him. Jealousy. For years he had cultivated relationships with influential people, yet Damien Moretti rarely invested attention in anyone. Watching the billionaire engage with Evelyn made Nathan question whether he had underestimated her. Meanwhile, Evelyn found herself unexpectedly relaxed. It made no sense. Every rumor surrounding Damien suggested danger. His reputation alone should have made her cautious. Yet standing beside him felt strangely safe. Perhaps it was because he never looked down on her. Perhaps it was because he never treated her like an outsider. Or perhaps it was because, for the first time that evening, someone powerful seemed genuinely interested in who she was rather than where she came from. The feeling unsettled her. But she could not deny it. As their conversation continued, Damien noticed the event credentials hanging around her neck. His gaze shifted casually toward the identification card. Then everything changed. His expression remained controlled, but something behind his eyes darkened. The name printed beneath her photograph instantly caught his attention. Evelyn Carter. For several seconds he stared at the surname. Carter. A forgotten name. A dangerous name. A name connected to events buried deep within the shadows of his empire. Memories he had not revisited in years suddenly surfaced. Secrets. Warnings. Promises. Questions that had never been answered. Evelyn noticed the subtle shift immediately. "What is it?" she asked. Damien didn't respond. His attention remained fixed on the badge. Because suddenly their meeting no longer felt accidental. The White House invitation. The timing. The connection. None of it made sense anymore. And if Evelyn Carter truly belonged to the Carter family he remembered, then somewhere in Washington an old secret had awakened. A secret that should have stayed buried forever. Here's Heading 3 continuing directly from Heading 2, keeping the story cinematic, suspenseful, emotionally engaging, protection romance focused, and under 700 words. The moment Damien Moretti saw Evelyn's surname, the atmosphere around him changed. To everyone else in the ballroom, nothing appeared unusual. Conversations continued. Crystal glasses clinked softly beneath the glow of chandeliers. The evening remained elegant and controlled. But inside Damien's mind, old memories had already begun resurfacing. Years earlier, a man named Jonathan Carter had quietly become a problem for some of the most powerful people in America. Officially, he had worked within federal oversight programs. Unofficially, he had spent years uncovering a hidden corruption network that connected politicians, corporate executives, foreign investors, and powerful criminal organizations. Very few people knew how close Jonathan Carter had come to exposing everything. Even fewer knew why he suddenly disappeared from public attention. Damien had heard whispers about the investigation long ago. Whispers powerful people wanted buried forever. Now his daughter was standing in front of him, completely unaware. As the evening ended, Damien maintained a calm exterior, but his instincts refused to stay quiet. The timing felt wrong. Too many pieces were suddenly moving into place. Across Washington, hidden eyes had already noticed Evelyn Carter's appearance at the White House gala. And hidden eyes rarely ignored opportunities. The next morning, Evelyn returned to her normal life believing the strange encounter with Damien Moretti was nothing more than an unexpected conversation. She buried herself in reports, meetings, and policy briefings. Yet throughout the day, small details began attracting her attention. A black vehicle appeared outside her office building twice. The same man seemed to enter a coffee shop moments after she arrived. An unfamiliar number called her phone repeatedly before disconnecting. Individually, none of it seemed alarming. Together they created unease. Fear settled quietly inside her thoughts. By evening, she convinced herself she was overreacting. Meanwhile, Damien's private intelligence network was uncovering something far more concerning. Several encrypted communications had surfaced within rival criminal circles. One name appeared repeatedly. Evelyn Carter. The realization immediately triggered alarm. Someone else had recognized the surname. Someone else had connected her to Jonathan Carter. And if rival organizations were searching for her, then they believed she possessed something valuable. Something dangerous. Damien ordered discreet surveillance around Evelyn's apartment and workplace. He did not explain why. He simply instructed his people to protect her without revealing their presence. For reasons he still could not fully understand, the thought of her facing danger alone irritated him. She was not part of his world. Yet somehow she already felt connected to it. What? The thought appeared unexpectedly before Damien pushed it aside. He had larger concerns. Because deeper investigations revealed an even more troubling possibility. Before Jonathan Carter disappeared, he had reportedly hidden critical evidence connected to his investigation. Financial records. private communications, confidential files capable of exposing an enormous corruption network. The evidence itself had never been found, but rumors suggested he left behind a key, not a physical key, an access point, a method of unlocking information nobody else could reach. And according to the intelligence Damien received, Evelyn might unknowingly possess it. Days passed. The pressure around her slowly increased. Anonymous emails appeared in her inbox. Strange messages arrived without explanation. Questions about her father surfaced from unexpected sources. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Evelyn's heart pounding, she began reviewing old family belongings stored in her apartment. She hoped to find answers. Instead, she discovered something unexpected. A sealed envelope hidden among her father's personal documents. The envelope contained only a single photograph and a handwritten sequence of numbers. No explanation. No instructions. Only a cryptic message. Trust no one. Fear tightened inside her chest. Because for the first time, she realized her father's death might not be as simple as she had always believed. Across the city, Damien received confirmation that rival groups had accelerated their search. The situation was escalating. Control was slipping. Whatever Jonathan Carter had uncovered years ago was becoming important again, and so was his daughter. Late that night, while Evelyn sat alone trying to understand the meaning behind the hidden message, someone quietly entered her apartment building. The stranger moved with purpose. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Only a destination. Apartment 14B. Evelyn Carter's door. And for the first time, the secret her father died protecting was about to come looking for her. Evelyn never noticed the figure entering her apartment building. She was too focused on the envelope spread across her dining table. The old photograph, the strange sequence of numbers, and her father's final handwritten warning occupied every thought in her mind. Hours had passed since she discovered the hidden documents, yet the mystery only seemed to deepen. Outside, Washington remained wrapped in silence. Inside, Evelyn felt something else. Unease. A quiet sense of danger she could not explain. Her heart pounding, she stood and walked toward the kitchen, trying to clear her thoughts. That was when her phone vibrated. An unknown number. Normally she would have ignored it. This time she answered. A familiar voice spoke immediately. Damien Moretti. The relief that unexpectedly rushed through her surprised her. Before she could ask why he was calling, Damien's tone became serious. He told her to leave the apartment. No explanations. No discussion. Just urgency. Fear instantly tightened around her chest. For several seconds Evelyn stood frozen. Part of her wanted answers. Another part trusted the warning. Then she heard it. A sound outside her apartment door. Subtle. Almost impossible to notice. But it was enough. For the first time, the danger surrounding her stopped feeling theoretical. It became real. Within minutes, Evelyn followed Damien's instructions and quietly exited through a secondary service staircase connected to the building. A black vehicle was already waiting nearby. The efficiency of the arrangement frightened her. Which meant Damien had anticipated this possibility long before she had. As the vehicle moved through the city, Evelyn stared out the window while questions multiplied inside her mind. Nothing about her life made sense anymore. Her father's hidden files. The mysterious surveillance. The warnings. The strange feeling that invisible forces were suddenly moving around her. And at the center of everything stood Damien Moretti. When she finally arrived at the destination, another surprise awaited her. The property looked less like a home and more like a private estate hidden from the outside world. Security was present but discreet. The atmosphere carried an unusual balance of comfort and control. For the first time in days, Evelyn felt able to breathe properly. Damien was waiting when she entered. Unlike the polished billionaire the public saw, tonight he appeared different. More focused. More protective. Less concerned with appearances and more concerned with her safety. Evelyn immediately demanded answers. Damien remained silent for a long moment before finally giving her the truth. Not all of it, but enough. He explained that powerful people had been searching for information connected to her father for years. Jonathan Carter had uncovered something dangerous before his death. Something valuable enough that certain organizations still wanted access to it. And now those same people believed Evelyn might possess the key. The revelation left her speechless. Everything she thought she knew about her father suddenly shifted. The respected public servant she remembered now seemed connected to a much larger story. One filled with secrets. Meanwhile, Damien faced a different challenge. The more he learned about Evelyn, the more difficult it became to remain emotionally detached. Protecting her had started as a precaution. Now it felt personal. Every instinct told him to keep her close. Say, what? The thought returned again. Stronger this time. Evelyn noticed small details throughout the evening. The way Damien constantly monitored updates from his security team. The way he ensured she had everything she needed before addressing his own concerns. The way his attention instinctively shifted toward her whenever she entered a room. Nobody had ever protected her like that before. Nobody had ever made her feel important enough to protect. As the hours passed, conversations gradually replaced tension. They spoke about family, regret, ambition, trust. The distance between them slowly disappeared. Not completely, but enough. Enough for Evelyn to realize the man behind the reputation was far more complicated than the headlines suggested. Enough for Damien to recognize that she was becoming impossible to ignore. For the first time in years, the powerful king of a hidden empire found himself caring about someone's safety more than his own strategic interests. And that realization carried consequences. Because while Evelyn finally slept peacefully inside the secure estate, believing the worst had passed, events were already unfolding elsewhere. Far from the safety Damien had created, one of his most trusted allies sat alone in a private office. A confidential message appeared on the screen. The sender belonged to a rival organization. The recipient was someone Damien trusted completely. And after a brief hesitation, the ally typed a response. The betrayal had begun. Damien simply didn't know it yet. The following morning began with an illusion of peace. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn woke without fear clawing at her thoughts. The secure estate felt isolated from the chaos unfolding beyond its walls. Large windows overlooked private gardens, and the quiet atmosphere allowed her mind to settle. Yet beneath that calm surface, forces were already moving against them. Damien sensed it before anyone else. Years of managing an empire had sharpened his instincts. Small inconsistencies that others ignored immediately caught his attention. Reports arrived late. Security schedules appeared slightly altered. Certain communications felt unusually delayed. Individually, none of it seemed alarming. Together they formed a pattern. Someone inside his organization was feeding information elsewhere. Someone trusted. Someone close. The realization disturbed him more than any outside threat. An empire could survive enemies. Betrayal was different. Betrayal weakened foundations from within. Meanwhile, Evelyn spent her days studying the materials left behind by her father. The mysterious sequence of numbers continued bothering her. Late one evening, while reviewing old documents stored inside a secure digital archive, she noticed something unexpected. The numbers were not random. They corresponded to dates. Specific dates connected to government contracts, private corporations, and international financial transactions. As she followed the trail, a disturbing picture began emerging. The corruption network Jonathan Carter had investigated years earlier was far larger than anyone imagined. Influential politicians appeared connected to major corporations. Major corporations appeared connected to secret financial accounts. Those accounts led toward organizations operating beyond public oversight. The deeper Evelyn searched, the more dangerous the information became. Her father had not uncovered isolated corruption. He had uncovered an entire system. A hidden structure protecting itself through influence and secrecy. Heart-pounding, Evelyn shared her findings with Damien. For several minutes he remained silent. The implications were enormous. Even he had underestimated the scale of what Jonathan Carter discovered. This was no longer about one investigation. It was about power, control, and the people willing to do anything to preserve both. As days passed, Evelyn became increasingly involved in the effort to decode the remaining information. What began as a desperate search for answers slowly transformed into something else. Purpose. She stopped feeling like a frightened observer trapped inside someone else's story. She became part of the solution. Every hidden file she unlocked revealed new connections. Every discovery pushed them closer to the truth. Damien noticed the transformation immediately. The woman who once doubted her place in powerful rooms was changing. She became powerful. Not because she possessed wealth. Not because she controlled armies of influence. Because knowledge itself was becoming her strength. For the first time, Damien began viewing Evelyn as more than someone he needed to protect. She had become his most valuable ally. His equal in a battle neither of them had expected to fight. The growing partnership brought them closer. Trust developed naturally between them. A rare kind of loyalty formed, one built not on obligation but on mutual respect. And that frightened Damien more than he wanted to admit. Because caring about someone created vulnerability. Vulnerability created risk. Yet every time he considered creating distance, he found himself doing the opposite. Keeping her close. Keeping her safe. Keeping her within reach. What? The thought no longer felt temporary. Unfortunately, someone else noticed their growing connection. Inside Damien's organization, the traitor continued feeding information to outside interests. Every security update. Every strategic decision. Every movement. The betrayal had become systematic. And eventually, it produced consequences. One evening, Damien received confirmation. A private communication had been intercepted. The source was undeniable. The leak originated from someone who had worked beside him for years. Someone he trusted. The discovery hit harder than he expected. Not because the traitor existed. Because he genuinely cared about the person responsible. For several minutes Damien sat alone in silence, staring at the evidence. The weight of betrayal settled heavily across his shoulders. While he struggled with that realization, events elsewhere accelerated. The rival organization finally understood something important. The key they sought was not hidden inside a file. It was hidden inside Evelyn's ability to connect the evidence. She had become the missing piece. And that made her invaluable. Late that night, while Damien met privately with his security team to address the internal betrayal, Evelyn returned to her room carrying several documents she planned to review before sleeping. The hallway appeared normal. The estate appeared secure. Everything seemed exactly as it should. Until she opened the door. A folded note rested on her desk. No signature. No explanation. Only a single sentence. "We know what your father left behind." Fear instantly tightened around her chest. And before anyone realized she was missing, Evelyn Carter disappeared from the estate without a trace. The moment Evelyn Carter disappeared, Washington changed. No public announcement was made. No headlines appeared. Most citizens continued their lives completely unaware. Yet beneath the polished surface of politics and business, panic began spreading through powerful circles. Because the people who understood the significance of Jonathan Carter's investigation knew exactly what Evelyn's disappearance meant. Someone had made a move. And now a hidden war was unfolding. Inside Damien Moretti's estate, silence settled over every room. The note left behind on Evelyn's desk remained untouched, resting beneath the glow of a single lamp. "We know what your father left behind." The message replayed endlessly inside Damien's mind. For years he had built his empire on control. Every risk was calculated. Every threat was anticipated. Every weakness was eliminated before it became dangerous. Yet somehow Evelyn had been taken directly from under his protection. The realization filled him with a rare emotion. Fear. Not for himself. For her. The feeling surprised him with its intensity. Because somewhere along the way, protecting Evelyn had become more than responsibility. It had become personal. What? The thought surfaced again. This time he didn't push it away. Meanwhile, Evelyn found herself inside an isolated private residence far beyond Washington's city limits. The location was luxurious, almost comforting on the surface, but she immediately understood what it truly was. A prison disguised as hospitality. Oddly enough, she wasn't treated like a captive. She was treated like something valuable. Something needed. That realization frightened her more than open hostility ever could. Heart-pounding, she spent hours observing everything around her. Every conversation. Every document left unattended. Every clue she could gather. If her father had taught her anything, it was that information remained the most powerful weapon in existence. And information was everywhere. The people holding her believed she was simply a frightened analyst caught in circumstances beyond her understanding. They were wrong. She was not a victim. As days passed, Evelyn quietly pieced together fragments of information. The rival organization wasn't merely searching for old evidence anymore. They were preparing something much larger. Something capable of influencing national policy, financial markets, and international agreements simultaneously. A coordinated operation hidden behind legitimate institutions. The scale shocked her. For years, powerful individuals had secretly manipulated decisions affecting millions of people. Jonathan Carter had discovered it. Now Evelyn understood why he never stopped investigating. Back in Washington, Damien launched his own response. Not with weapons. Not with violence. With influence. Meetings were arranged. Financial pressure appeared unexpectedly. Long-standing alliances shifted overnight. Private intelligence networks activated across multiple cities. The hidden king of the Moretti Empire had entered the conflict completely. And people noticed. Corporations delayed decisions. Political advisors canceled appointments. Powerful figures suddenly became difficult to reach. The entire system could feel something moving beneath the surface. Danger. Real danger. The closer Damien came to finding Evelyn, the more resistance appeared. Every lead seemed intentionally designed to misdirect him. Every answer generated new questions. Yet one thing remained constant. Loyalty. The people who genuinely stood beside him refused to step back despite the growing risks. For the first time since the betrayal inside his organization, Damien understood exactly who he could trust. At the same time, Evelyn made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing information hidden inside a private database, she found the final missing piece of her father's investigation. A complete archive. Every financial connection. Every secret agreement. Every name. The evidence Jonathan Carter spent years collecting had survived. And now she knew where it was hidden. The realization left her breathless. The corruption network was not preparing to protect itself. It was preparing to expand. If successful, the operation would place enormous economic influence into the hands of a small group operating beyond accountability. The consequences would reach far beyond Washington. Far beyond America. For the first time, Evelyn understood the true stakes. Hours later, Damien finally tracked her location. Relief swept through him. The rescue mission could begin. But before events could move forward, the leader of the rival organization requested a private conversation. The message arrived directly. Unexpected. Personal. And impossible to ignore. During the call, the mysterious leader spoke calmly, almost respectfully. Then he revealed something that shattered everything Damien thought he knew. Jonathan Carter had never been investigating the corruption network alone. Years ago he had worked alongside someone else. Someone powerful. Someone hidden. Someone still alive. And according to the rival leader, Evelyn's father had not died protecting evidence. He had died protecting a secret identity. One connected directly to Evelyn herself. The call ended. Damien sat frozen. Because if the revelation was true, then Evelyn Carter wasn't merely connected to the mystery. She had been part of it from the very beginning. The truth arrived like a storm that had been gathering for years. After locating Evelyn and securing the final archive connected to Jonathan Carter's investigation, Damien finally uncovered the secret that had remained hidden for decades. The rival leader had not lied. Jonathan Carter had never worked alone. He had secretly partnered with a small group of individuals determined to expose the corruption network spreading through politics, finance, and international institutions. But the most shocking revelation involved Evelyn herself. Years earlier, Jonathan realized his investigation had become too dangerous. The people he was exposing possessed immense power and influence. They controlled careers, corporations, and governments. If they discovered the complete truth, his family would become targets. So he made an impossible choice. Instead of leaving the final access credentials inside documents, Jonathan embedded critical pieces of information throughout Evelyn's life without her knowledge. Academic records, personal archives, scholarship applications, family keepsakes. Individually they meant nothing. Together they formed the final key. Jonathan had trusted only one person to finish what he started. His daughter. When Evelyn learned the truth, tears filled her eyes. For years she believed her father died before completing his mission. She believed his work ended unfinished. Now she understood something different. He had been preparing her all along. Not as a victim. Not as someone who needed saving. But as someone strong enough to continue the fight. For the first time, Evelyn stopped seeing herself as a woman trapped inside someone else's story. She embraced her place within it. And that changed everything. Using the complete archive, Evelyn and Damien began exposing the corruption network piece by piece. Information moved carefully through trusted channels. Independent investigators received evidence. Journalists obtained documents. Financial regulators suddenly gained access to records that had remained hidden for years. The effects were immediate. Political careers collapsed. Corporate executives resigned unexpectedly. Influential organizations rushed to distance themselves from individuals connected to the scandal. Washington entered a state of controlled panic. For years powerful people had operated behind closed doors believing they were untouchable. Now the truth was becoming public. Among those affected was Nathan Blackwood. The same CEO who once mocked Evelyn at the White House gala suddenly found himself at the center of multiple investigations. Hidden financial arrangements connected him directly to several organizations named in Jonathan Carter's files. His reputation began unraveling. Board members abandoned him. Business partners disappeared. Investors withdrew support. Everything Nathan had built around status and influence collapsed faster than he ever imagined possible. And for the first time he understood what it felt like to stand alone. Meanwhile, Evelyn experienced something she never expected. Respect. Not because of her connection to Damien. Not because of her father's legacy. Because of her own actions. People who once overlooked her now listened carefully when she spoke. Experts sought her analysis. Investigators valued her insight. Decision-makers recognized her intelligence. She became powerful. Not through fear. Through knowledge. Through courage. Through truth. Damien watched the transformation with quiet admiration. Every day she seemed stronger. Every day she moved further beyond the uncertain woman who entered the White House ballroom believing she did not belong. Now she stood confidently beside presidents, senators, and industry leaders without questioning her place. She had earned it. And somewhere along the journey, Damien realized he no longer wanted to imagine a future without her. The realization felt surprisingly simple. His empire had given him influence. His reputation had given him control. But Evelyn gave him something entirely different. Purpose. Their relationship deepened naturally. No grand declarations were necessary. Loyalty already existed between them. Trust already existed between them. And in quiet moments, when the chaos of investigations and headlines faded into the background, both recognized the truth they had been avoiding. They had become each other's safe place. A rare thing in either of their worlds. As the corruption scandal continued spreading across the country, one final development captured national attention. An official statement emerged directly from the White House. The announcement was brief, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. The President of the United States was requesting the presence of two specific individuals for a special public address. Damien Moretti and Evelyn Carter. Across Washington, speculation exploded instantly. No explanation accompanied the invitation. No details were provided. Only a date, the time, and a promise that the announcement would address one of the most significant investigations in recent American history. As television networks rushed to cover the story and political leaders scrambled for answers, Evelyn stared at the official summons in disbelief. Because deep down, she knew this meeting would change everything. For her, for Damien, and for the entire country. Washington had witnessed countless historic moments. Presidents had announced victories. World leaders had signed agreements. National heroes had received recognition beneath the bright lights of the White House. Yet on this particular afternoon, an unusual tension filled the air. The East Room was overflowing with politicians, diplomats, journalists, corporate leaders, and members of the media. Every seat was occupied. Every camera remained focused on the stage. Nobody knew exactly what was about to happen. But everyone knew it mattered. Among the guests sat Nathan Blackwood. The former CEO looked nothing like the confident man who had once mocked Evelyn Carter. His influence had vanished. His reputation had collapsed. The attention he once commanded now belonged to others. For the first time in his life, Nathan understood what it felt like to watch events unfold without the power to control them. Then the doors opened. A hush swept across the room. Evelyn Carter entered first. The transformation was impossible to ignore. Months earlier she had walked into the White House feeling like an outsider. Fear had followed her into every conversation. Doubt had whispered constantly in her ear. She had questioned whether she belonged among powerful people. Not anymore. Today she carried herself differently. Confidence replaced uncertainty. Purpose replaced hesitation. Strength replaced fear. The woman who once searched for acceptance no longer needed it. She had earned her place. The room rose to its feet. Applause echoed through the chamber. Nathan watched silently as the same woman he once dismissed received more respect than he could have imagined. Behind Evelyn walked Damien Moretti. The reaction was entirely different. The applause softened. The atmosphere shifted. Because Damien's presence carried something deeper than popularity. Power. The hidden king of an empire built in shadows moved through the room with the same calm confidence he had always possessed. Yet today there was something different in his expression. For years he had carried responsibility alone. 4 years control had been his greatest priority. Now Evelyn stood beside him. Close, safe. And somehow that mattered more than any business empire ever could. As they reached the front of the room, the president stepped toward the podium. The crowd immediately fell silent. What followed stunned everyone. Instead of focusing on political achievements or government success, the president spoke about Jonathan Carter. He revealed how years earlier Jonathan had uncovered a corruption network that threatened public trust at the highest levels. He described the sacrifices made to protect the investigation. He explained how Jonathan chose truth over personal safety. Most importantly, he honored the courage of the daughter who finished what her father started. Evelyn felt tears gathering in her eyes. For so many years she had carried unanswered questions. Now her father's legacy stood restored before the entire nation. His work had not been forgotten. His sacrifice had not been meaningless. The applause that followed felt endless. For a brief moment, Evelyn closed her eyes and imagined her father watching. Proud. At peace. When she opened them again, she found Damien standing beside her. Steady. Protective. Unshaken. The realization warmed her heart. Throughout every danger, every secret, every challenge, he had remained there. Not because he needed something from her. Because he chose her. The president continued speaking. Then he addressed a topic nobody expected. Damien Moretti. The room instantly became still. Journalists leaned forward. Politicians exchanged nervous glances. Even Nathan Blackwood looked confused. The president acknowledged that many important truths never reached public headlines. He spoke about influence used responsibly. He spoke about loyalty. He spoke about individuals who helped preserve stability when chaos threatened to spread. Without revealing hidden details, the message became clear. Damien's role had mattered. More than anyone realized. The president stepped away from the podium. The entire room watched. No one seemed to breathe. Slowly he walked toward Damien Moretti. The hidden king remained perfectly composed. Evelyn's heart pounding, she sensed history unfolding in front of her. Then it happened. The president extended his hand. For a second, silence consumed the room. Absolute silence. Then Damien accepted the gesture. The president took the Mafia boss's hand. Shock rippled across the audience. Cameras flashed instantly. Reporters exchanged stunned looks. Nathan Blackwood stared in disbelief. The same man he once viewed as untouchable was now standing powerless while the president publicly showed respect to the man beside Evelyn. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Power recognized power. Loyalty recognized loyalty. And truth had finally defeated deception. As applause erupted once more, Damien looked toward Evelyn. Their eyes met. Nothing else mattered. Not the cameras. Not the crowd. Not the political spectacle surrounding them. Only that moment. Only the future waiting ahead. The queen stood beside her king. The empire remained secure. The war was over. The secrets were gone. And for the first time in a very long time, both of them felt completely safe. Because the woman who had once been told she did not belong now stood beside the most powerful man in the room. And while the entire nation watched, the president himself showed respect to the mafia boss who never stopped protecting her.